Luka's Kids, it's Luka's Kids, it's Luka's Kids, it's Luka's Kids.
Well, hello, my fellow caramellers. How are you doing today? Welcome to another episode of Luka's Kits. We've got a neat one for you here today. These kits are really sought after these days. They're really unique. It's insane about these things. They can be challenging, but it's such a neat, weird, quirky thing that I remember when these came out. It was 1989, and when these were announced, I was working at a hobby shop. Strangest thing, what would possess Revell to do ASA, basically late model stock cars? It was such an odd thing, but they were very popular. They went over very well, but they came and then they went, and they've never been reissued before. There were a few different versions. We're just gonna cover the three Camaros that came out. There was a Thunderbird. There was two Thunderbirds that came out. Pretty much the same kit, except it had a Ford engine and obviously a Ford body. But we're going to stick with just the Camaros. When you take a look at this kit, you're going to know what's in the Thunderbird kits. As you can see, this one is factory sealed. And for this video, oh yeah, guess what? It's staying factory sealed because I got plenty of these. So they're kind of in different conditions, but I have attempted to build this car, never completely finished. I wonder what the price was. This looks like the original. Allied Hobbies, have no idea. 7 something. It was a while ago. But there's something very unique for when you're looking for these kits you might want to look at, if you're especially going for the Camaros, because they had their individualities. There was things in some and things in others, and we're going to get to that here real quick. But this is that one. This is the Bob Seneca, which I think was probably out of all three of them the nicest looking one. But the Bob Seneca car, I always like Bob's cars. I know Raising Garrett out there, he has a little connection. He likes building Bob Seneca cars. He did a real cool second gen. I like that blue and silver. This is a cool car. I actually grabbed this one fairly recently. I bought all mine back in the day when they were on the shelves or at swap meets for $5. I've started a few. I've murdered a few. When you get to see this thing has some really great parts and some other things that can go to, other types of racing. I do want to build this Bob Seneca car. So when I got the opportunity to snag this maybe like a year ago, and it was a hefty price. I think this was going for $50 or something. Of course, I bought a batch, so I probably got a better deal on this. But still, I just wanted to have a pure one for when I get ready to actually build my Bob Seneca car. But I'm not ready to open this. So there was this one, and there was a Lane Automotive Camaro. It's the 87 and 88 ASA champion, Butch Miller. But there was this. And then, of course, what I thought was really cool is they did Darrell Waltrip's Superflow Camaro. How cool is that? When getting these kits, they're kind of interesting. This is the one I think is the most complete that I had been able to grab. This is the one we're going to look at. But they were all very unique to one another. It wasn't the same exact kit with just decals put in. And we'll start with the Darrell Waltrip one because, it's the one that we're going to look at the parts individually. And we'll start with, of course, let's look at the instructions. And the Darrell Waltrip car came with a V8. And we're going to get into this because one of the kits came with a V6. The other two were V8s. Let's look at this. Now this is a very odd looking chassis for you people that are not familiar with race car chassis. This is what's called an offset chassis. And if you look at some of the instructions what it means by an offset chassis, let's see if we can get a good shot. As you can see, the instructions are very well illustrated. But if we can get a good look at the chassis, if you look at this, it's hard to tell in this, but I'll show you. See that right there? The cage is all around the driver. There's in the passenger side, actually the exhaust exits out the passenger side, and you eventually will put sheet metal like this, goes all on that side and kind of puts the driver in kind of a pocket. And that is called an offset chassis, where everything's kind of off to the left. And offset chassis really turn left really, really well. You can see kind of how you've got all this framework under the driver here, and nothing really over here but a Nerf bar and some exhaust sticking out. The car is very, very to the left. There are some series that allow it. There are some that do not. And that is called the perimeter chassis, which is what you see in NASCAR and most racing, where the bars are around the passenger compartment and the framework's under the passenger side of the car, just as much as on the driver's side. But that's what was really cool about these. Having a strange offset chassis, you had some really, really cool things you could do with this. And it came with the typical NASCAR slicks, Goodyear slicks, in only 2 of the kits. But these are pretty much the same tooling, same mold that they used for the monogram NASCAR kits back in the days, even though this is a 25th scale model. But this is what was really cool. First of all, look at that Moroso valve cover. This thing had such great pieces in it. And look at the wide 5 wheels. And we'll show you the hubs and how they work together is just amazing. That was very cool. But remember the wide 5s. And of course you've got some nice, these are like, they seem very small, but these are probably the only known small block Chevy 350 Moroso valve covers ever put in scale, not counting anything that aftermarket has ever done. And I had forgotten about those, and something might need to be done about that. That's cool to have right there. But I'm going to pull the whole kit out, and there's the other 2 tires and the decals. I'm going to get the box out of the way. Let's take a look at these decals. Now, I'm not sure, I'm going to say up front, as far as decals, I don't think I have decals available to show the other 2 right at this time, but at least we'll take a look at this decal sheet. Yeah, you know, look at that, 1989. The decals that were produced back in the day for the kits in the 80s, I'm just going to say it, they were horrible. And you can see, you know, the white's kind of yellowed, but you would have put that down on the black car, that white would have turned gray on you, and this would have looked blah. So to build this car is kind of a bummer. You know, you can't really do that. But you know, I have a few sheets to try to attempt it, but I'm not going to build the Darrell Waltrip car, I don't think. I would love to, because Darrell Waltrip is still my favorite. I have been a Darrell Waltrip fan since a long, long time ago. And look at the glass. It's a little beefed up there. Could probably rub that out, but look at how thin it is. And it has all the rivets, the detail, and look how very, very, you know, non-distortive it is. Such very thin glass, and it's how it fits into the body, which you can see the body, just a beautiful rendition of an 80s 3rd gen Camaro stock car body. It's basically like a 5-star racing body. There's the blocked out taillights, the Camaro taillights, but you can still see it's got that Camaro look. Look at that detail, the riveting of the bodies, because these were all panels that just got kind of pinned onto the chassis. There was not a lot of excessive body work done on these cars. These depict, for ASA, these bodies were fiberglass, but if you wanted to do a different racing division, like a lot of the NASCAR lower racing divisions, NASCAR late model, or Southwest Tour, which was on my side of the country, you can just say, it's a sheet metal body. The sheet metal bodies looked exactly the same. But you'll find, like under the hood, and we'll show you here in a little bit, it actually has that look of fiberglass, which is kind of unique. But still, even if it was a sheet metal car, all the panels would be pinned together with rivets. Let's look at this. There is your really cool, look at that hub. You can see under there, they have the little pegs. Well, the holes for the pegs that are on your hub, and these go on there so nice, and they look so good when you get them painted right. Just beautiful. They're just absolutely beautiful. These kits were probably rated more for these hubs and those wide 5s than anything, even down to, look at this, and I got more stuff to show you. It's going to bend your mind, the detail in this. I mean, there's the rear cover for the quick change rear end, but look at that oil filter. Can you see that oil filter? The detail in that oil filter, just incredible. Simple little things. This was an incredibly beautifully created, accurate looking, full of detail look to scale model. And you know how I feel about the Monogram NASCAR series. These were top in that area until you start trying to put this thing together. They were a misery. They are really difficult. They can be a bear. They are very struggling. Look at that detail. There's the steering column support right there. Look at that. Nice cushy race seat. That's a cool looking race seat. This is an excellent race seat to use in, like, you know, any Saturday night short track car you're doing that would have raced in the 70s or 80s. That was a very popular seat. Fuel cell. What fuel cell? Disc brakes. Not pretty nice disc brake detail. I don't recall, we'll see in here, I don't think there is any brake calipers. So there's your rear bumper. It just looks like a Camaro rear bumper. Now here's some of the interior sheet metal that goes in there. You've got, and check this out, this is kind of neat. Look what they got right there. You see that? There's the kit numbers for either the black, light metallic blue, or white. Here we go with the main framework of the car. Look at that frame. You see what I mean by a offset chassis? This is where the driver would sit the pods off to the main frame rails, and there's nothing over here on this side. And like I said, offset chassis, those race cars really turn left, but that's all you're going to get them to do. There's like the passenger sidebar, so it's just an X, and somewhere in here, well, we'll get to that, we'll see the driver side, but molded on. This was a coilover car. It's got a really unique chassis setup, not one bit like the NASCARs. There's no truck arms. It's got a Franklin quick change, which we'll see in a minute. And it has a 3-link setup, because there's the third link that goes above the rear end and connects to the chassis. And of course, there's no screw jacks, separate shocks to deal with. It's all coilover shocks on these cars. And here we go. There's the hood. But there's your engine. It's pretty nice detail. It's a good looking Chevy 350. It's a little on the small looking, but I think that would look really good if you needed it for any cool hot rod you were doing. And those Moroso valve covers we looked at earlier. Oh yeah. And the last tree we got here, there's your Franklin quick change. It's in halves. There's your lower rear control arms. And then we showed you earlier the one that goes up on top, which this is the top here. And then there's a Panhard bar that goes across, that type of 3-link suspension with a Panhard bar. There's your lower control arms for the front, exhaust, and there's your spindles. But look at this. This was another awesome feature. At the time, that was the most incredible Holley double pumper, 750 double pumper ever put out. I just thought, look at the detail on it. This was just dynamite back in the day. That was another part that I bought a lot of these kits for, was just to raid that. Can you see that? Can we get that in focus? Look at that. Just an absolute beautiful little piece of work right there they did. There's the spindles. Here's the driver's side. You see more conventional stock car racing door bars for the driver, and of course the rear coilovers right there. Now we're going to take a look at a couple of different things from the other two kits. It's very unique. This was an incredibly unique one that had different parts to it than the other two kits. This one, first of all, it had, if you can see in the picture right there, it had basic regular 5-lug hubs and wheels on these. These wheels are very similar to what you found in your NASCAR kits of the 9-hole Bassett wheels. This kit had a couple of unique things about it that's different than the other two. Yeah, there you go. It had Hoosier tires. It's the only one that had the Hoosier tires. Pretty much the same mold that NASCAR, Goodyear Racing Slick, but they went through the trouble of putting, and this is the only kit they've ever done it in, the Hoosiers, which is pretty cool. I guess they had to do that in order, they wanted to do the championship car of 87 and 88. You know, they had no choice. Now, body the same, all that's the same, but here you look at this, you see something really strange here is, well, first of all, there's your regular 5-lug bolt pattern with your typical Bassett stock car racing wheels. And look at those teeny tiny little, what's that say on there? I can't see what it says. Maybe we can see it. Does that say Moroso? I don't think so. It's hard to tell, but look at how tiny those valve covers are. This one had the V6, which is pretty cool. Everything else all the same as what we saw in that black car. But let's just get down to the V6 and this hood. Check out the hood. This was the only one that had the hood that had the IROC louvered vent, whatever you want to call it. It also had this really cool kick up at the cowl. This was the cool hood to have for these ASA cars. And I pretty much bought these for having, you know, extra parts, and I wanted that hood. I'll show you a model I has been working on that I might get back on a little later. There's your V6. So that was very, very cool. So this was quite the unique kit. This one had the different wheels, had that hood, which is, it's really cool. It's good to know when you're looking for these, if there's something particular you want. You're wanting that hood, but you're not going to get those wide fives. Look at this little oil filter on this one, too. You still have the regular oil filter, but you also had this. If any of you racing aficionados know, especially in the 80s, you could disassemble and clean. They were very popular in stock car racing. These kits are just chock full of really unique, cool little stock car racing parts, and that's why, man, if you knew it back in the day, you went out and you snagged as many of these at the swap meet as you could, because there was a point that, hey, we're all over the place for like $5 here and there, and you know, the average kit price back in that day was around $10 on the shelf. So you know, you bought these up. They just had so much great parts to them, and you can make so many other racing series with the chassis, and even the body you could do things with. I've got some crazy projects I did with these, but I'm going to show you this one here. I started this project probably in 1990. I was going to tech school, and I was working for a guy at a used car lot, and we were talking about, and he used to race stock cars, and he told me what his car would be, what he would race if he was still racing today, and he loved third-gen Camaros. His name was Glenn, but it was spelled with, he checked me when I showed this to him. It was supposed to be 2 N's. Glenn Rosberg. I haven't talked to the man in 30 years, don't know where he is, but the name of his company and I worked for him was mostly Chevy's car company. And I kind of came up with this cool paint job. It's looking a little bit on the rough side. Macon Racing. Yeah, that's a little play on my name, Matt Conti. You know, this is way pre-Luka C. But still pretty cool looking. It's a bummer that not just silvering but yellowing around the Richard Petty 22s there. So it's a little bipped up with rub-on letters. That was something pretty popular back in the late 80s, early 90s from the Ford companies, and so we kind of did a play on that. Would I say that today, being that everything in my driveway is a frickin' Ford? Yeah, I would. And, of course, this one, so we might be able to really take a close look at that hub. You can see I got a lot of stuff off the tree. I got working on this baby. I had to raid one of those hoods. I like that hood. So I love that little flip up of the cowl right there. And, of course, that just gave you a nice opportunity to do some cool painting. And I just think that's quintessential to a 80s Z28, having your little NACA ducks on the hood like that. Little big ones, actually. So there's the look. 358. This would be a NASCAR race car. Probably would race in the Southwest Tours, what I was making it as. And you can see, look at that detail under the hood of making it look like it, if you can see that, making it look like it's fiberglass. I always thought that was a neat little touch. You know, I painted this kind of it's very yellow nowadays, very aged, but I don't know what paint I used, but this was petty blue. V8 all built up. There's those beautiful Moroso valve covers for a V8 small block. No carburetor because I probably ripped it off. As a matter of fact, because I was going to put the Moroso air cleaner on it, I just grabbed whatever I had in the parts box. This janky little carburetor, I'd have done that up fine because it was going to get covered by that. Give you an opportunity to really take a look at this hub system that we have. This was really a neat design in this kit. You have your hub and you have your rim, actually just a rim. It's not really a full wheel, and this hub would fit right into there like that, and it just is just a cool looking stock car wheel with the big floating hubs. I haven't looked at this in years. I really love its look. I'm thinking I might slam this together. I'm not going to detail it or try to do anything. It's not anything. I got to get this on the shelf. It's just so cool looking. I think I'm going to have to. Okay, this is where the kit got very problematic. So you would have your floor and all that, and you'd have to get this all glued in first. This comes later, but this goes like that. And there's a few other pieces that go with it. It's neat and all that, but the problem that you had is you had to, like this here, sheet metal down, then the frame would go into place, and it was really cumbersome at getting it in there, and you had to do everything separate to where you couldn't glue this all together. This had to stay separate, which was a bummer. All that stuff had to stay separate to where you always had a line in the roll cage, but it could get hidden. You know, that was something that bothered me about this kit, that you couldn't put the cage together and then deal with the sheet metal interior later. You know, I also am a lot better model builder today than I was back then, so I think we can make this work. I'm gonna do a video. I'm promising you guys this. I think I got to get some things going with a couple of my projects, especially the Porsche that's mainlining. But I'm going to pull this kit out, and I think we're going to do a video where I'm just going to, in one sitting, get this thing together, see what happens. What the heck. It could be a disaster. It could work out. But it's such a neat thing. It's something, like I said, it was 1990 when I was working on this. There it is. The ASA Camaros. Lovely kits, nightmare kits, expensive kits nowadays. But if you can get your hands on one, it's quite a unique little stock car build to do. This right here, the prettiest one of all. But just remember, there's a little bit of differences in a couple of them. Keep that in mind when you're searching for them. You know, there's some neat things that are in that Lane Automotive one, but you don't get those cool hubs. You get the other ones. You know, you got your V8 in this. You've got in the 17 car, same thing. I believe the 17 in this, I recall there was a difference, but I don't think so. I don't think there's a difference between the 17 and this one. Very cool kit. I remember when they were mentioned, and I just got real excited. If you're looking for them, you wondered what they were like, now you know. You find those Thunderbirds, they're okay. It's the same exact kit, just a Thunderbird body and a Thunderbird Ford engine. You might like that. You might want that. The Thunderbird body was really, really wicked looking. That was a cool one. I want to thank you all for stopping in and watching. And why do we love to hunt down these old vintage kits and take a look at them on YouTube? Because it's fun, right? Here's the producers.
Luka's Luka's Kits.